Hello dear all. In this is the seventh lecture. We'll be studying about crop nutrition. As we know that nutrient management for the crop is one of the important aspect for crop production. So in this lecture we'll be studying about different nutrients which are required for the plants and how they'll be functioning in the plants, and as well as their deficiency symptoms and their management. So let's get started here. So how actually this search for nutrient started? In 19th century, Theodore de Saussure and Jean-Baptiste discovered the need of chemical elements for plant growth and development. So we cannot completely depend on the water or the soil what we are having. We need nutrients as well, as we have already learned in the first lecture that other nutrients are also required in addition to water and air. So that chemical nutrient, how the plants are growing, so that started in the 19th century, and Theodore de Saussure and Jean-Baptiste actually discovered the need for chemical elements for plant growth and development. So these nutrients, these are inorganic in nature. Okay, these are inorganic ions in soils derived mostly from mineral constituents of the soil. So these are inorganic in nature. That means the main difference between organic and inorganic ions is organic ions mainly contain carbon atom in them, but inorganic ion, they do not contain carbon atom in them. Okay, so these inorganic ions are mostly derived from mineral constituents of the soil. And in soil science you must have learnt about different minerals, rocks and minerals, and different types of minerals there, clay minerals, aluminum silicate. So you must have learnt about all those things. So plants require nutrient in the form of inorganic form. They do not take up the nutrient directly as such which is present in the soil. It has to be converted to inorganic form. So the nutrients which are being taken up by the plants mostly will be inorganic in nature. So what is mineral nutrition? Mineral nutrient we say because it is an inorganic ion which is obtained from the soil, that is from the minerals which are present in the soil and which are required for the plant growth. So the mineral nutrient means it is an ion, or it is just like a tablet for the plant. So this, what is mineral nutrition now? Mineral nutrition is the process of absorption, translocation and assimilation of nutrients by the plants. So that is mineral nutrition. So let me just give you an example. As I told you, plants take up nutrient in the inorganic form. So these terms actually absorption, translocation and assimilation. So plant roots take up nutrients in inorganic form. Plants take up nutrients in inorganic form, that is absorption. So that process is absorption. That means the plants will take up the nutrient in inorganic form, and these nutrients, when taken up by the roots, those have to be translocated or moved to other parts of the plant, like say leaves or say fruits or the flowers. So the nutrients have to move from one part of the plant to another part of the plant. So that is translocation. Absorption means the roots will be taking up the nutrient from the soil, and translocation means that is movement of the nutrient from one part of the plant to another part of the plant, that is translocation. And next is assimilation. Here what happens, the nutrient will be taken up in the form of inorganic form. So this inorganic form of nutrient, it will be converted to organic form of nutrient, and that is called as assimilation. Okay, so plants roots take up nutrient in inorganic form, and that inorganic nutrient will move to other parts of the plant, which is known as translocation, and there it has to get converted to organic form, so that nutrient can be made available for the other different processes of the plant metabolism. That is assimilation. Conversion of inorganic to organic form, it is called as an assimilation of nutrient. So now mineral nutrition, it consists of all these processes like absorption, translocation and assimilation of nutrients. Now coming to what are the different essential elements. We call them essential because they are must for the plant's survival. There are so many nutrients, around say 60 nutrients which are required for the plants, but we don't know every nutrient's role. But there are some 17 elements which are must, which are should and must be there for the completion of the life cycle of the plant. So plants need around 17 elements out of 63 or 65 elements for their growth and completion of the life cycle. So what are these 17 elements which are required for the plant? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and NPK, okay, and calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and these are micronutrients: iron, manganese, zinc, copper, molybdenum, boron, chlorine and nickel. These are called as micronutrient. That is because I'll tell you about what you understand by micronutrient and all. So these are the 17 elements which are required and which are essential for the plant growth. And recently these 4 elements have been added for that essential list. Those are sodium, cobalt, vanadium and silicon. So how do you remember this? Sodium chemical name is Na and cobalt is Co and vanadium is Va and silicon is Si. This is just V, vanadium. Okay. So how do you remember this? You can remember like Na for sodium, Co for cobalt, Va for vanadium, C for silicon. So Na, Co, Va, C. You can remember likewise, and it will be easier for you to remember if you remember in a short way. Okay, so these 4 elements have been added recently, which are absorbed by some plants for special purpose. As I told you, these 17 elements are must for all the plants, but these 4 elements, Na, Co, Va, C, these are absorbed by some of the plants, not all plants, only few plants need these, that too for some special purposes. So these 4 elements are called as functional elements because they have some function which are necessary for few plants, not for every plant, required for few plants. That is why these are called as functional elements, and these functional elements were discovered by Nicholas. Alright, so these 4 elements were discovered as functional elements by Nicholas. Now what is the criteria for essentiality? Criteria means there will be some rules, no? How can we say a particular nutrient as essential, right? Say for example, our food culture is like we eat rice every day, right? So we say that rice is essential for us. So on what basis we say that rice is essential for us? That is because we are acquainted to it and we want to eat it daily. That is why we call it as essential. Similarly, plants will also have some set of rules, like how can we call that particular nutrient as essential nutrient. So those rules we call them as criteria for essentiality, like on what basis we say that nutrients are essential for the plant. So this criteria for essentiality was given by Arnon and Stout in 1939. Okay, criteria, these set of rules were given by Arnon and Stout in 1939, and it was refined again. These rules were refined later by Arnon only in 1954. First it was given by both the scientists Arnon and Stout, and later it was refined by Arnon only. Okay, so he gave these 3 principles or rules why a particular nutrient is essential for the plants. So the first rule is an element is said to be essential if the plant cannot complete its life cycle without it. Say for example, we know that NPK are required for the plants, and you know the fertilizers we apply to the plants to supply these nutrients also, right? So how can we say that nitrogen is an essential element for the plant? So it is said to be essential because plant cannot complete its life cycle without this nitrogen. This is just an example. So let's take for example, we know that plants are green because of the chlorophyll, and for the chlorophyll development, nitrogen is the one which is very much required. Okay, so if there is no nitrogen, how can we expect that chlorophyll production will be there in the plant, and how can we expect that plant will photosynthesize? Without chlorophyll, plants cannot synthesize. Therefore, nitrogen is an essential one, because plant cannot complete its life cycle without nitrogen supplied to the plant. So this is the first point. Second point is, if the malady or the deficiency that develops in the plant in its absence can be remediated only by that element. See, this sentence means that, say for example, when there is nitrogen deficiency in the plant, okay, since we are talking about nitrogen, I'll give the example of nitrogen again. So when there is a deficiency of nitrogen, the plants turn yellow, which we call it as a chlorosis. Plants turn yellow because of loss of chlorophyll, so that is called as chlorosis. So when there is a deficiency of nitrogen, we cannot fill nitrogen's place by some other nutrient. Say for example, now nitrogen is deficient for a particular plant. Now we cannot create that character by phosphorus, by supplying phosphorus. It has to be created, or nitrogen must be supplied, so that this chlorosis can be corrected. So for example, again the same thing, like if the deficiency of nitrogen that develops in a particular plant, in its absence, if at all nitrogen is not there, means we cannot fill the gap by supplying any other nutrient. It has to be corrected, or the deficiency symptom has to be corrected or repaired by nitrogen only. The role of the nitrogen cannot be taken by any other element. Since nitrogen is involved in chlorophyll synthesis, only nitrogen has the capacity to provide or produce chlorophyll. We cannot supply phosphorus in place of nitrogen if we have deficiency of nitrogen in the plant. So if the deficiency of nitrogen is there, it has to be corrected only by supplying nitrogen and not by phosphorus. And third one is, and when the element is directly involved in the metabolism of the plant. So as I told you, this nitrogen is directly involved in the metabolism of the plant, like photosynthesis. So for metabolism of the plant, photosynthesis is the one which is very much necessary, right? So when nitrogen is directly involved in the metabolism of the plant, and no other element can take its place. So that is how, these are the three important rules which are said to be essential for particular nutrient to be calling it as an essential nutrient to the plant. So I hope you have understood these points. If you have not understood, we can discuss them in the class. So these are the two scientists, P.R. Stout and Daniel I. Arnon. These two gave that criteria for essentiality of the nutrients. Now coming to, as I told you, 17 elements which are required for the plants, which are very much necessary for the plants to grow. So we'll study like what are the different symbol and in which form the plants take up the nitrogen. So the chemical symbol and the ionic forms. Ionic means as you can see here, these are called ionic form. Okay, this is ionic form. So the first one is carbon symbol I hope you all know, and form of absorption by the plants. Plants take up in the form of CO2. Hydrogen is taken up as H plus from H2O, and oxygen is taken as an elemental oxygen or oxygen from water, and nitrogen is taken up in NH4 plus, that is ammonium, or NO3 minus, that is nitrate form. Okay, so majority of the plants take up nitrogen in the form of nitrate. Majority of the plants take up nitrogen in the form of nitrate. Only few plants take up nitrogen in the form of ammonium. Say like rice, potato, sugarcane, they take up nitrogen in ammonical form, but most of the plants take nitrogen in the form of nitrate, and these all are inorganic in nature. As I told you, at the start of the lecture only, that plants take up nutrient in inorganic form, not organic form. But some plants also take organic nitrogen, like this is amide form, NH2, this is amide form, and molecular nitrogen also, very few plants like that. Okay, and then the phosphorus, it is taken in the form of HPO4 2 minus or H2PO4 minus, also as nucleic acid and phytin. These are organic in nature. Okay, nucleic acid and phytin are organic in nature, whereas this HPO4 hypophosphate or this H2PO4 are inorganic in nature. Majority of the plants take up phosphorus in H2PO4 minus form, and potassium is taken up in as K plus, and calcium Ca2 plus, magnesium Mg2 plus, sulfur either sulfide or sulfate, SO3 2 minus or SO4 2 minus. And here you can see like how from which source actually plants take up these different nutrients. You can see NPK from the soil, and CO2 and oxygen from the air or water, and other all nutrients from the soil. And how do we receive water? From rainfall, or we provide irrigation to the plant. So here for the other nutrients like iron is Fe2 plus or Fe3 plus, zinc Zn2 plus, manganese Mn2 plus, copper Cu2 plus, boron Bo3 plus, molybdenum MoO4, and chlorine Cl minus, silicon, sodium, cobalt, and vanadium. So now what you can remember is 17 very much essential nutrients plus 4 are the functional nutrients, right? So 17 plus 4, 21 essential nutrients we can say as such unofficially. But when it is asked what is the number of essential nutrients, then you have to mention 17 only, because these 4 nutrients, these have some functions only in a few crops. Say for example, in sugar beet is one of the sugar crops mainly grown in temperate areas where it requires sodium, whereas other crops do not require sodium. So these have some function only in few crops and not all. That's why these are functional nutrients. So we combine all these together and we call 21 as the essential nutrients, or say beneficial elements. So now we'll talk about the classification of these essential elements. How do we classify? There are 4 classifications of essential elements. One is based on the relative quantity that is normally present in the plants, like whether it is present in high quantity or low quantity, very less quantity. Based on that we'll decide. Second is based on their chemical nature, whether it is a non-metal or cation or anion, like that. Based on general function, what is the function? Based on the function, what function the particular nutrient is playing in the plant. Based on that we'll have the classification. And last one is based on the mobility in plants and soil. Mobility means movement of the nutrient in soil and plants. How is it? So based on that we have 4 different classifications, and we'll be studying about all these classifications in detail. First one, that is based on the relative quantity that is normally present in the plants. So we say that, as I told you, 17 essential nutrients are there. Among those 17 essential nutrients, these 3 nutrients, CHO, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, these are the basic nutrients, because these form the basic structure of the plant. Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, that's why these are basic nutrients, and these contribute carbon altogether, this CHO altogether contribute 96% of dry matter in the plants. Dry matter means the green vegetation, what do you see in the plant? No, that is dry matter. So in a particular dry matter, say for example 100 kg of dry matter or plant matter you have, in that 96 kg is filled by these 3 elements, CH and O. Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, these provide around 96% of the dry matter. Okay, and in this among these 3 elements, this carbon and hydrogen constitute 45% respectively. Like 45% is presence of carbon, and hydrogen is in 45% and the remaining 6% is filled by the oxygen. Carbon 45% in the dry matter, hydrogen 45% in the dry matter, so this will be 90% plus the oxygen in 6%, that makes them 96%. So in the whole dry matter 96% is contributed by only these three important basic nutrients and the remaining 4% is filled by other nutrients. Okay, so the second is the macronutrients. That means macro means required. These nutrients are required in large quantities for the plants. Those macronutrients are NPK, calcium, magnesium and sulfur. Sulfur is missing here. Okay, just note down as sulfur as well. So NPK, these are the primary nutrients, and calcium, magnesium, sulfur, these are secondary nutrients. So 6 nutrients are classified under macronutrients because they require these nutrients in large quantities, and these are taken up in gram per kg, gram of nutrient per kg of the plant. Say for example 100 kg of plant we have, and nitrogen is taken up in say 100 gram or 200 gram by this 100 kg of plant material. Okay, and third one is the micronutrient, which are taken up in small quantities. All these are micronutrient, very small quantities they are taken up, like iron, zinc, copper, boron, molybdenum, chlorine, manganese, nickel. These all are taken up in very small quantity, like megagram, milligram per gram, or ppm. ppm means milligram only. Okay, ppm is milligram per gram. Likewise, you can this classification is based on the amount which is present in the plant. Second classification is based on the chemical nature. As I told you, it is based on the chemical nature, like metals, non-metals, cations and anions. So metals means which have luster, which are tangible, like that, right? So metals like potash, calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, manganese, copper, cobalt and vanadium. And non-metals are these. Okay, see, the classification differ from one classification to another. Do not connect them. That is a separate one, this is a separate one. Okay, you may get confused that potassium, calcium and magnesium, those are macronutrients. How the and the same nutrients are present here as metals. No, it is not like that. It differs according to the material or the mineral. Okay, so these are non-metal nutrients which are required for the plant. Similarly, cations means which have which can give the electron to another other element, that is, okay, positive. You can see all the positive, those are cations, all the negatives are anions. So the plants require these nutrients in cationic form and these nutrients in anionic form. So this is the second classification. And third classification is based on the general function, like what are the function, based on the function of those elements, this classification is given. So the basic structure, as I already told you, those are CHO, elements providing basic structure to the plant. These three elements are there, and elements useful in energy storage, transfer and bonding, those are NSP. Energy storage, like ATP. ATP is the energy source for the plant that has to be stored, transferred and has to be bonded. So these three elements NSP are required for this process. And elements needed for charge balance, like potash, calcium, magnesium, these are called as regulators and carriers. They maintain the charge balance between the cytoplasm and the nucleus, and maybe in any other processes they maintain the charge balance. So these are called as regulators and carriers. And fourth one is enzyme activators and electron transport. Enzyme activators are mostly micronutrients, like iron, zinc, magnesium is there, that is one macronutrient, cobalt, boron, manganese, chlorine. So these are called as catalyzers and activators. These activate different enzymes. Around thousands of enzymes are activated by many of these micronutrients. Fourth one is based on the mobility in plants and soil. So under that, first we'll talk about the mobility in plants. So what happens if at all a particular nutrient is mobile? Mobile means it is highly movable from one place to another place in the plant. From root to shoot or shoot to root, it is highly movable. So this knowledge of mobility of nutrients in the plants helps in finding what nutrient is deficient. So what happens? This is the plant and these are the roots. When a particular nutrient is highly mobile, that means it can easily say for example here written highly mobile nitrogen. So nitrogen is highly mobile, that means it can easily move from root to topmost shoot very fast. Okay, so when this nitrogen is moving from root to shoot, that nitrogen will be present in the shoot, right? That will be present in the shoot, and we can expect deficiency symptom in the lower part of the plant. I'll repeat now. See, when the particular nutrient, say as I was telling you, this nitrogen, as I was telling that it is highly mobile, highly movable in nature. When this nutrient is moving from root to shoot, root to shoot means that nutrient will be present only in the shoot and not in the root. That time we can expect deficiency symptom. Deficiency means less amount of nutrient in the lower portion of the plant, because that nutrient is present in the topmost shoot, and the nutrient deficiency we can see in the lower part of the plant. Okay, so nutrient able to translocate from older leaves to younger leaves, deficiency symptoms appear on the lower leaves. So when a particular nutrient is highly mobile, it immediately moves to the topmost portion of the plant, and the deficiency symptoms are seen in the younger older leaves. Alright, so that's how the deficiency symptoms we can expect. Now which are the nutrients which are highly mobile in plant? NPK, these are the basic nutrient. Moderately mobile, zinc. Less mobile, most of the micronutrients. And immobile, calcium and boron. Immobile means what? They cannot move from root to shoot. They will remain only in the root, and the deficiency symptom will be seen in the topmost shoot, not in the root, since those two nutrients are immobile in nature. Hope you have understood this. Now coming to mobility in soil. So mobile in the soil means with water they move, nutrients move, or with clay minerals they move in the soil. So highly soluble in the water, mobile nutrients means what? Those are highly soluble and not adsorbed on the clay complex. Okay, such nutrients are nitrate, sulfate, borate and chlorine. So these four nutrients are highly mobile, that means highly soluble in water, and they can move easily from one place to another, and they do not get attached to the clay complex which is present in the soil. Second one is the less mobile, which are soluble but are adsorbed on the clay complex. That means mobility is there, solubility is there, but part of it is absorbed or adsorbed by the clay complex, and mobility is reduced. Such nutrients are these cations: ammonical, potash, calcium and magnesium. And immobile means highly reactive and gets fixed in the soil. That means they get attached to the clay complex, and they will not be easily soluble in the water and not mobile from one place to another. Such nutrients are phosphorus. Mostly phosphorus and anions are immobile in nature. So what you have to remember here is the different examples for high mobility in soil, high mobility in a plant. So that's how you have to remember the mobility of the nutrients, and that can be part of your bits in the exam. Now coming to the role of essential nutrients in crop development. So we know that, as I told you, NPK, these are called as primary nutrients, because these are the just like ABCD, which are primary requirement to study the further, no. Similarly, NPK are the primary or the basic nutrients which are required apart from CHO. So these three are called as primary nutrient. So in that, first one is the nitrogen. So what is the role of nitrogen in the plant? It is necessary for the formation of amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. The protein present in the plant is formed by the different building blocks of amino acids, and amino acids are formed by the help of nitrogen, and essential for plant cell division, vital for the plant growth. It is directly involved in the photosynthesis. As I told you, it is involved in the chlorophyll formation. And next is necessary component of different vitamins, aids in the production and use of carbohydrates, and affects energy reactions in the plant. So you have to remember few roles of each nutrient. Okay, and here you can see the nitrogen deficiency plant. This is a nitrogen rich plant, and this is nitrogen deficient plant. That means there is lack of nitrogen, because of which chlorosis has occurred. Chlorosis means lack of chlorophyll in the plant. Second nutrient is the phosphorus. It is involved in photosynthesis, respiration, energy storage and transfer, cell division and enlargement. This is the energy nutrient because it is helpful in production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency for the plants. Okay, promotes early root formation. It helps in the root formation and the growth, improves quality of the fruit, vegetables and grains, vital for the seed formation, helps plants to survive harsh winter condition. It increases water use efficiency. Water use efficiency means even when there is less amount of water, when phosphorus is abundantly present in the plant, that plant can use the water efficiently, means without wasting the water for any other processes, the plant will use it efficiently, and it hastens maturity. That means it helps in maturity, early maturity of the plant. So here you can see the role: strengthens plant resilience, improves germination, increases the biological activities of soil, resulting in proper rooting. It is a component of DNA and RNA. It is necessary for proper photosynthesis, enhances fidelity of the yielding, ensures proper development and maturation of plant, increases content and quality of protein, sugar, starch and vitamins, increases efficiency of nitrogen fertilization, preventing effects of nitrogen overdosing. You just remember few roles of the phosphorus in plants. Next is the potassium. So it is required for carbohydrate metabolism and the breakdown and translocation of starches, essential for protein synthesis, important food formation. It activates different enzymes and controls their reaction rates. It improves quality of seed and fruit, improves winter hardiness. That means it can survive in the winter condition. It increases disease resistance. Okay, these are few important roles of these primary nutrients. Now coming to secondary nutrients. These secondary nutrients are calcium, magnesium and sulfur. These are secondary nutrients, and these also play an important role in the plant, but next to NPK. So in that, first is the calcium. It is required for continuous cell division and formation, involved in nitrogen metabolism, reduces plant respiration, aids the translocation of photosynthesis from leaves to fruiting organs, increases fruit set, essential for nut development in peanuts, stimulates microbial activity. And then magnesium. This is the key element for magnesium production, because in chlorophyll it is having something like this: magnesium in the center and nitrogen on the four sides. So this is a chlorophyll one cell. Likewise, that's why it is the key element of chlorophyll production. It improves utilization and mobility of phosphorus, functioning of plant enzymes to produce carbohydrates, sugars and fats. It is directly related to grass tetany. Grass tetany is a disease which we can find in cows and buffalo. If it is eating magnesium deficient plants, then that disease we can see in these animals. Increases iron utilization in the plants, and it influences earliness and uniformity of maturity. And third one is the sulfur. It is an integral part of three amino acids like methionine, cysteine and cysteine. You have to remember this. These are important. Okay. Integral part of these three amino acids, helps to develop enzymes and vitamins. It promotes nodule formation on the legumes, aids in the seed production. It is necessary in chlorophyll formation. Though it is not one of the constituent, as I shown you the cell of the chlorophyll, but sulfur plays a secondary role in chlorophyll formation. Now coming to the micronutrients. Micro means which are taken up in very less quantity by the plant. So the first one is the boron. It is essential for germination of pollen grains and growth of pollen tubes. Essential for seed and cell wall formation. It promotes maturity. Necessary for sugar translocation. It affects nitrogen and carbohydrate. And next one is chlorine. Since I am just reading these out, because if I go on explaining, that is out of your reach. You just remember what are the different roles. That's it. Chlorine, it regulates the osmosis. I hope you are aware of what is osmosis. For it helps in photosynthesis and ionic balance. This chlorine helps in this breakdown of water for photosynthesis. Then copper, it is a major function in photosynthesis, indirect role in chlorophyll production, increases sugar content, concentrated in roots of the plant, plays part in nitrogen metabolism. It improves the flavor of fruits and vegetables. And then iron, it promotes chlorophyll formation. It acts as an oxygen carrier. It reacts involving cell division and growth. And then the manganese, it functions as a part of certain enzyme system, aids in chlorophyll synthesis, increases the availability of phosphorus and calcium. And then molybdenum, it is required to form the enzyme, that is nitrate reductase, which reduces nitrates to ammonium in plant. So this nitrates which are present in the soil, it has to be converted to ammonium in the plant. So during that process, conversion of nitrate to ammonium, this nitrate reductase is the enzyme. So this, for the production of this nitrate reductase enzyme, molybdenum is required. It aids in the formation of legumes, nodules, and needed to convert inorganic phosphate to organic forms in the plant. Deficiency of molybdenum is there, then protein synthesis blocked. Molybdenum and nitrogen are connected indirectly. If any of the nutrient is deficient in the plant, the other process will definitely be affected. And next is the zinc. It helps in growth hormone production and enzyme system, necessary for chlorophyll, necessary for carbohydrate formation, necessary for starch formation, and it aids in seed formation. And nickel, this required for iron absorption, and this deficiency of nickel, it fails to produce viable seeds. Viable means which can be stored for a longer time. So if nickel deficiency is there, then the viable seeds will not be produced in the plant. Now coming to the functional nutrients like cobalt, it is required for nitrogen fixation. Deficiency may lead to nitrogen deficiency symptom. Similarly, this cobalt and nitrogen are correlated. And silicon, it is component of cell wall. It helps in mold rot tolerance, prevents fungal infection in case of tissue damage. So now coming to deficiency symptom. Deficiency symptom means what? When a particular nutrient is not present in a sufficient amount in the plant, then definitely we can find. Just like human beings, when there is deficiency of calcium, we find our nails, on the nails we find some white scratches like thing, or say our bones will become weak. Likewise in plants also, because of these deficiency of particular nutrient, there will be some symptoms which will be visible. So these deficiency symptoms are distinguished based on region of occurrence, where they are occurring, whether the lower leaves, older leaves, presence or absence of dead spots. If you just Google dead spot, means you will find brown color spots on the leaves, fruit, stem, root, wherever the deficiency is seen. And chlorosis, that is loss of chlorophyll, or chlorosis of entire leaf, or interveinal chlorosis. Interveinal means, suppose this is the leaf and these are the veins. Interveinal means this part. This is interveinal, in between the veins. So now coming to the deficiency symptom chart, where actually it happens. So deficiency symptoms we can see on older leaves, new leaves, old and new leaves, and then the terminal bud. Terminal bud means topmost shoot of the plant. So in older leaves, what are the nutrients we can find the deficiency symptoms of? These nutrients have the deficiency symptoms on the older leaves like NPK, magnesium, molybdenum. And on the new leaves, young leaves, sulfur, iron, manganese and copper. And old and new leaves, both we can find is the zinc. Terminal bud, we can find calcium and boron. Just remember the chart or the classification of mobility of the nutrients in the plants. These nutrients are highly mobile in the plants. That is why we find deficiency symptoms on the older leaves. Alright. So, this chart you have to remember. How you are going to remember? So, I have a small trick which can be useful for you to remember if at all. Okay. So, how you can remember is the first one is the old leaves. And on the old leaves, you can remember these three, since these are the primary nutrients, NPK, and two more nutrients, magnesium, molybdenum. So you can remember NPK, magmo, likewise. Okay, NPK, magmo. Now this NPK, magmo again has classification, dead spot and no dead spot. Okay, so what you can do here is, you just remember this MOK. A person, he is a person. Okay, I'm just connecting you to a story so you can remember easily. Mock is a person. Okay, and on his face we can find dead spots. So that will be easy, right? Dead spots are found where potassium and molybdenum deficiency are there. So you can remember that Mock is a person where dead spots are found on his faces. So that will be very easy for you to connect. And the remaining three, NP and magnesium. NP and magnesium, if you remember these two, then these three you can remember easily. So NP and magnesium, when their deficiencies are there, then there won't be any dead spot on the plant. Okay, so again this NP and magnesium, again it has green veins and yellow veins. Veins means the, what do you find? Just like in our human body we find the green color veins in our body, no? Similarly on the leaf we can find the veins. So when green colored veins are there, means that is related to magnesium. Magnesium you can connect like G for green, magnesium for green. Okay, and another one is the yellow veins. Yellow veins, you remember nitrogen. Nitrogen, the main deficiency symptom is the chlorosis, that is yellowing of the leaf. So you can directly connect there that nitrogen, if nitrogen deficiency is there, then yellow veins of the leaves will be there, that to older leaves, and no dead spot. Likewise you can connect them easily. Okay, I'll just come back again. I'll repeat this. Older leaves, what are the different nutrients where we find the nutrient deficiency on older leaves? What are the nutrients? These are the nutrients NPK, magnesium, molybdenum. Again in that we have dead spots created by the nutrients and no dead spot. So dead spots are created by the person Mock. And remaining three, NP and magnesium, no dead spots we find. And again in these three we have green veins and yellow veins. Green veins are there when magnesium deficiency are there. Yellow veins will be there when nitrogen deficiency is there. So one part is clear here. Now coming to new leaves. New leaves, how you can remember is this iron and manganese. Iron and manganese you can remember as Iron Man. Iron Man you must have heard, right? Iron Man, he is going on the scooter. SCU is there, no? SCU, you connect like scooter. Okay, Iron Man is going on the scooter. So likewise you can connect that sulfur, iron, manganese and copper. These four nutrients, these deficiency symptoms will be on the new leaves. Again in that we have green vein and yellow vein. So how you can remember? Iron Man is having green veins, whereas his scooter is having yellow veins. Okay, likewise. So it is very simple to remember like that. Iron Man is having green veins, scooter is having yellow veins. Okay, so this is done. And now coming to old and new leaves, since this is the only nutrient which is present here, we can remember directly that zinc is the one which is having deficiency symptoms both on old and new leaves. And now coming to the terminal bud, that is topmost shoot, you can remember calcium and boron. You remember as cab. Cab is moving on the terminal road. terminal road or terminal bud, you can remember likewise. So your deficiency symptom chart is ready. You can remember very easily like this. Or if you have any other method, that will also be helpful, because this can be asked in your final exam as well. That's why. So these are the different symptoms we find in the leaves of different nutrients in the plant. Here you can see how actually it happens. Healthy leaf is like this. Okay, phosphorus deficiency means purple color leaf will be there. Potassium deficiency means the yellowing will be on the edges of the leaf. Okay, edges of the leaf. In nitrogen deficiency, even the vein and the other portion of the leaf will be yellow. So that is the main difference you can remember. So coming to nitrogen deficiency symptom, chlorosis, and chlorosis progresses from light green to yellow. So this is how it happens. Entire plant becomes yellow under prolonged stress. If there is stress means, nitrogen stress means, definitely it becomes, entire plant becomes yellow. And growth is immediately restricted and plant soon becomes spindly and drop older leaves. Older leaves will fall off immediately. And deficiency symptom of plant, the important one you have to remember for deficiency symptom of phosphorus is the leaves appear dull, dark green or blue green or red purple, especially on the lower side and especially at the midrib and the vein. So these are the veins you can find here. These are called as veins. Okay, and petioles may also exhibit purpling. Petioles means this part of the leaf. The stalk which is attaching stem and the leaf, that is petiole. That will also exhibit purpling, and restriction in growth may be noticed here. And deficiency symptom of potash, leaf margins drying, it will be scorched, it has necrotic spots and margins become brown and downward, and growth is restricted, and dieback. Dieback may occur. Dieback means plant starts drying from the top of the plant. Okay, suppose this is the plant, means the plant starts drying from the top and it moves downward, that is dieback. Mild symptoms appear first on the recently matured leaves. And coming to symptoms of calcium, so growing points usually damaged. You can see growing point means where the stalk will be attached to, that is growing point, that will be damaged, that is called as also dieback. Margins of the leaves developing from the growing point are first to turn brown. Deficiency symptom of magnesium, marginal chlorosis or chlorotic blotches. We can see leaves show yellow chlorosis, interveinal tissue and younger leaves affected. Symptoms usually occur late in the growing season. And sulfur, leaves uniformly light green followed by yellowing and poor. Uniform chlorosis does not occur. See what happens, nitrogen and sulfur, no, the deficiency symptoms are same, but only thing you should remember is nitrogen deficiency symptoms will be on the lower leaves and sulfur deficiency symptoms will be on the upper leaves, younger leaves. Of copper leaves, wilt means they die, become chlorotic and necrotic, and wilting and necrosis are not dominant symptoms here though. And iron, here distinct yellow or white areas we can find between the veins, and symptoms are rare on mature leaves since we can find on the new leaves. And manganese, we can see chlorosis is less marked near the veins. Mottling means you can see insect eating type of symptom in the plant, and chlorotic areas eventually become brown, transparent or necrotic. Symptoms may appear late on the older leaves. And zinc, leaves may abnormally small and necrotic. Internodes become shortened. Internodes means you can see on the plant like this, there will be some constriction. So if this is the node, this part is the internode, so that becomes a shorten in case of zinc deficiency. And boron, this is you can read it up, like young expanding leaves may be necrotic or distorted followed by death of the growing points. Internodes may be short, especially at shoot terminals. Stem may be rough, cracked or split along the vascular bundles. So that's about the crop nutrition chapters. If